Hi, alternates. Day 3 of Florida versus Donna Adelson did not disappoint. It seems that all of my days I am getting to report on the testimony of the convicted felons. On day 1 was Luis Rivera, and today, day 3, towards the end of the day, we got to hear from Catherine Magbanua herself. We also heard from one of Charlie's exes, one of Wendy's exes, and let's just say they both have a type. We also heard from Harvey Adelson's dental assistant of 40 years. And listen, a trial wouldn't be a trial without experts. Today, we heard from experts who tracked all the phones, all the GPSs, all the financial records, and all the things. And honestly, I was exhausted just listening to all these records they were going through in the case. So let's get into it. First up was Wendy's ex-boyfriend, Jeffrey Lacasse. And let's just say he and Dan Markel resemble each other, like a lot. To put it a different way, Jeff Lacasse and Dan Markel look like they could have been members of the same nerdy fraternity when they were in college. All right. So they began dating in September of 2013. They became official around Halloween of that year. And the relationship ended 4 days before Dan's murder. So he put the end date of their relationship as July 14th, 2014. Jeffrey Lacasse was aware of the divorce and he knew that it was not amicable. And he testified that he adopted the Adelson family narrative about Dan, that he was being difficult and that he was just being a jerk. Jeffrey knew that Wendi wanted to relocate to Miami and said that it was an almost daily topic of conversation whenever he was with her. Donna was very involved in her daughter's life and the divorce proceedings. Jeff met the Adelsons. He met Donna in mid-November when they were dating, and he met the rest of them later on. He also met Charlie and Catherine in South Florida in March of 2014. At this meeting, they were there for alternative spring break. And at this kind of get-together between him, Katie Magbanua, Wendi Adelson, and Charlie Adelson, the topic of Dan Markel did come up. And they also actually talked about Catherine's ex-boyfriend. He just seemed like a really bad guy. And that's why Jeff remembered that part of the conversation. Charlie did not like Dan, and during this meeting, he even mentioned that he knew people on both sides of the track, meaning that he met professionals who were, above board, but he also knew bad people who were willing to do really bad things. Jeff explained that he and Wendi had planned a trip out of town, and that trip was supposed to be from July 11th through July 17th of 2004. This was a trip without the kids. It was just going to be the two of them. But then suddenly on June 4th, Wendi called an impromptu chat with Jeff to tell him, listen, I need to cancel our planned trip in July because even though I don't have to pick up the kids until 5 p.m. on July 18th, I'm just really worried that I won't be back in time to pick up the kids. Now, Jeff thought about this and he was like, that is so silly. We're supposed to return an entire day before you're even supposed to pick up the kids. But, he basically said he didn't want to fight with her, so he didn't push back. He explained that Wendi was a bit erratic. One day she'd be a nervous, anxious wreck. The next day she'd be fine. And he even recalled that in April of 2014, Wendi failed to show up for a date. When she didn't show up, he was really worried, so he went all the way to her house. Wendi answered the door and she looked like she was intoxicated, but by more than just alcohol. He basically said her eyes were glazed over and he was really annoyed and just left. Then there was the incident of the broken TV. He recalls it was the week of June 11th through June 18th. He went to visit Wendi at her house and she wanted him to look at a TV. And he thought maybe, one of the kids had pressed the wrong button and she couldn't get to the right place. But when he walked up to the TV and turned it on, he noticed that the screen was cracked. Anyway, that was basically what he said about the TV. Then the prosecution introduced a text message where Wendi was texting her brother Rob that Jeff is her secret boyfriend. But by that time frame, they had already been dating but about 7 or 8 months. And so Jeff, when he was presented with this text message, he was like, well, that couldn't have been right because her parents definitely knew about me. So let's focus on late June 2014. Around this time frame is when Jeff confronted Wendi because he had found out that she had been seeing other guys, and he felt that for several months she had been stringing him along. So he confronted her, and this was when they were in Gainesville. After this confrontation, for the next 2 weeks, the couple just texted and talked. And Jeff kind of explained, like, I wasn't sure if we were broken up or we were breaking up, but during those 2 weeks, we were still texting and talking. On July 13th, they got together without the kids, and Jeff describes that he was getting really annoyed by Wendi because every time he was with her, all she talked about was relocating to Miami. And that's when he basically told her, listen, you need to get over it. Well, I want you to hear how that conversation went for yourself.
Please repeat your answer.
Yeah, the only way she'd ever be able to relocate is if something happened to Danny, was the first statement.
Okay, and did she mention anything further about something happening to Danny?
Can I give the context before the next?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was getting a little tired of this whole drama around the relocation. And so I pushed back on Wendi a little bit and said, like, you're going to have to kind of make your peace with this. You're going to have to take some responsibility for this. You're linked to Dan and Markel for life. Kind of challenged her a little bit. And she said, well, can I tell you something confidentially? And I said, sure. And she said, last summer...
I'm going to repeat the same objection. Our Senate court's ruling.
Same ruling remains. The objection is overruled. You may continue with your answer.
She
Can
said,
I tell you something in confidence?
Yeah, can I tell you something? After I challenge her, can I tell you something in confidence? Sure. Well, last summer, my brother looked into all options possible to take care of the Denny Markel problem, including hiring a hitman, and it would cost about $15,000.
Okay, and when she referred to her brother, she's got two of those, right?
She said Charlie.
Okay. And when she said Charlie looked into hiring a hitman, are you familiar with Charlie's joke? I looked into hiring a hitman, but got you a TV as a divorce president because it was cheaper.
Yeah, Wendi had told me that joke a couple of times. This was not that joke.
Okay, so this was something different.
Yeah, the joke was said with levity. It's a dark joke, but well, this I found chilling. I found disturbing. It made my stomach flip. It kind of took me aback. It was, she was dead serious when she said this. And she'd asked to tell me in confidence, which you don't do before you tell a joke.
Well, that's weird. The following day, July 14th, Jeff testified that Wendi invited him to yoga. He went, but he hates yoga. And that's when he knew, listen, this relationship is over, like over. After yoga, the couple spoke in the parking lot, but it was clear the relationship was over. So at one point, he just threw up his hands and he just walked away. He was like, I am a grown up. I am walking away from this mess. As he walked away, Wendi called out to him.
Okay, what happens as you walk away?
Get about 10, 15 feet away from her and she calls after me. I turn around and she had a series of detailed questions about what I would be doing on Friday. I had a trip to Tennessee planned and she wanted to know if I was going on that trip. And she wanted to know what route I would be taking. And if I didn't go on the trip, why wouldn't I go on the trip? And I answered the questions as best I could, but I was confused why at that moment she wanted to know the details of what I was doing on Friday when she expressly didn't want to spend time with me on Friday.
Okay, and we now know that Dan Markel was murdered on Friday.
Yes.
Right? If you had taken the trip as planned, which is as you reported to Wendi that day, what would your route have been?
I would have left my house at about 11 a.m., which Wendi knew. I'd related my plan to her earlier in the relationship. Needed to get to Atlanta for dinner and was worried about traffic and stuff like that. So I would have left at 11 and I would have driven down, I would have got to Capitol Circle in Thomasville, which is close enough to Danny's house that it kind of gave me the creeps. It was kind of weird. Yeah.
Okay, so physically you're saying you might have been sort of consistent with where how the killers fled town.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is so sickening to think about. And not just this, after it was all said and done and Jeff learned about Dan's death and the fact that the hitman had been in town in June, this is what he had to say about that June incident.
Are you aware, sir, that you were suggested as a potential suspect in this
Yes.
murder? Where were you when Dan Markel was murdered?
I was in Tennessee because I had left on my trip the night before.
So
rather
you
than
changed your plan.
I changed my plans at the last minute.
All right, and you provided law enforcement with some receipts and things to prove that you were in Tennessee at the time?
All that, and I got a flat tire, so I ended up getting videotaped at a Kmart. And I know the TPD used that to exclude me with the timestamp on the surveillance footage.
Then there was the issue of the celebration dinner after Dan's death, where Wendi told Jeff that Charlie took her to a celebration dinner, and after he told her something, she threw up all over the dinner table. On cross-examination, the defense harped on the fact that everything that he ever heard about Donna, meaning Jeff heard about Donna, was mostly through Wendi, and that it was Charlie who really disliked Dan Markel and made it known. After Jeff's testimony, Charlie's ex-girlfriend, June, testified. She dated Charlie from October 2015 through June 2017. She described that in the beginning of their relationship, everything was rosy. Although she maintained her own apartment, they were practically together, her and Charlie, 24/7 when he wasn't working. She was aware that Charlie's brother-in-law had been shot and that the case remained unsolved. But other than that, they barely spoke about it, and she didn't really feel a need to speak about it. Charlie was nice, calm. She called it a fairy tale relationship. So let's get into April of 2016. So that's when the bump or the tickle the wire incident occurred, April 2016. And Charlie, it came out in testimony that Charlie did not mention that bump to his girlfriend, June, who he was with allegedly 24/7. June said that during the relationship at some point, she did watch a TV special on Dan's murder. And when it was mentioned that the hitman received their money that was stapled, that's when she began to notice that Charlie also kept his money stapled. And for her, that was a red flag. Around the time that the hitmen were arrested, June said that Charlie's demeanor completely changed. He went from this calm, nice guy to always being agitated, on edge. He even couldn't sleep at night. That was the extent of June's testimony. Next up was a brief witness named Ryan. He was one of Charlie's close friends, and they became friends in 2013. And what this witness had to say was, yeah, Charlie had a lot of girlfriends. Yeah, he didn't like Dan Markel, and he made it known. And he also confirmed that Charlie kept his money stapled, a group of $100 bills stapled together in stacks of 1,000. Charlie did tell Ryan about the bump, and that's when Ryan noticed that Charlie's demeanor changed. He was basically always agitated. The next witness on the stand was Mary Hall. She was the financial investigator in this case. And in a nutshell, she went through everyone's finances connected to this case. The hitmen, Katie, Charlie, Donna, Harvey, and even Wendi Adelson. First, let's talk about the hitmen. The shooter didn't even have a bank account, by the way, but by going through DMV records, she found that after Dan's murder, he registered 3 vehicles in Florida, 1 motorcycle in late July, 1 Monte Carlo in late August, and a Nissan in mid-October. For Luis Rivera, the getaway driver, she noted a pattern in his bank records. He had steady employment and had a deposit or a direct deposit for his work, which was roughly between $500 and $600 a week. And it was like on the dot every single week. But as soon as it was deposited, Luis would always immediately withdraw all of it. And then there were all these bank fees for all the payments that were trying to get paid that were bouncing. That all changed right after Dan's murder. From that date of the murder until roughly 4 months later, Luis never withdrew money from that account after money was deposited. Also, 2 weeks after the murder, Luis, the getaway driver, registered 2 vehicles to his name, a yellow motorcycle and a 1996 Toyota Camry. With regards to Katie, this expert found that Katie was employed up until July 13th, 2014. Then not again until the summer of 2016. So how was she getting money? Well, Charlie would often deposit money into Katie's bank account. Katie's car was a beater, and he also often paid to get it fixed. Then Katie got rid of the beater and was gifted an old Adelson vehicle. Then, roughly 3 months after Dan's murder, Katie was added to the payroll and she received weekly deposits or weekly checks from the Adelson's dental practice, although, I might add, she never worked there. All of those checks to Katie were signed by Donna Adelson. In addition to the car being added to the payroll, Katie got money from Charlie to get breast augmentation in October of 2014, and he even paid for a trip to the Dominican Republic in March of 2015. With regards to the ownership and management of the Adelson Institute, the dental practice, this witness also pointed out that management changed several times between Charlie and his father Harvey throughout the years. The next witness was also a brief witness, and her name was Clarissa. She worked for the Adelson Institute practice for over 40 years, and apparently someone else took over the company or the Adelson practice, and this witness still works there. She was Harvey Adelson's dental assistant, and she confirmed that Katie never worked at the practice. After Clarissa, the star witness of the day showed up. It was Katie Magbanua herself in the flesh. She strolled in with her orange prison jumpsuit, long black wavy hair, and shackles. Looking at her, I got a little bit sad at the beginning of her testimony that this woman, a mother of two, could have gotten herself into this mess. Before I tell you what she testified to, I will tell you that her testimony was all over the place, and really a lot of it was also incredulous. She told the jury that she was currently in prison serving a life sentence for the murder of Dan Markel. She told them that she previously testified untruthfully at 2 trials. The first was when Sigfredo was convicted, and the second was at her trial. During those trials, she told the jury that she was not involved in Dan Markel's murder or the plot to kill him. But why had she changed her tune now? When asked why they should believe her testimony now, this is what she had to say.
I think that the truth needed to come out and the people responsible needed to get arrested.
Okay, are you hoping to get something out of this?
I would eventually like to see my children again one day.
And are you hoping that something can be done for you even after being sentenced?
Yes, ma'am, I'm hoping so.
Okay. Have you been promised anything
No,
in
ma'am,
exchange for your testimony?
No, ma'am, I have not.
Okay, by me or by anyone?
No, ma'am, nobody.
Okay. Has anybody told you what you need to say here today?
No, ma'am.
Has anybody told you, well, you need to implicate a certain person?
No, ma'am.
Weren't you originally offered immunity in this case to come forward with the truth?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Why did you not take that opportunity?
Well, in the first trial, I was tried with Sigfredo Garcia, and he was facing the death penalty, and I just couldn't do it.
Okay, because the truth would implicate your child's father.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What about the second time?
I've been living a lie this whole time, and it was just so hard to come out with the truth that I kept fighting.
Did anybody threaten you or harm you to prevent you from coming forward with the truth?
No, ma'am.
Were you ever promised anything by anyone to, if you'll just remain silent, we'll pay for your kids' education or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
Were you involved in the death of Dan Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
Did we have it right? Were you the middleman between the shooter and Charlie Adelson?
Yes, ma'am.
Who solicited you to become involved in this?
Charlie.
So let me tell you a little bit about Katie. Katie started dating Sigfredo when she was 18. They had 2 kids together, and around 2013, they began to have an on-again, off-again relationship. Katie and Charlie started dating in 2013, and they stopped dating in early 2015. But it should be noted that there was an overlap when Katie was seeing both Charlie and Sigfredo at the same time. When asked if she ever met Donna, she confirmed that she had, but it was only once or twice, and it was at the dental practice when Katie went in to get some dental work done. So Charlie first approached Katie about the plot to kill Dan Markel around Halloween of 2013. And here is how that went down.
Well, we were out in Lincoln Road. It was like a kind of like a block party in Lincoln Road. And then when we were getting ready to get into our cars, he jumped into my car, and he basically suggested that do I know anybody that can harm someone?
Okay. And were those the words he used? Harm?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you know somebody that could harm someone?
Yes, ma'am. At that time, I mean, Sigfredo was the first person that kind of popped in my head.
Okay.
Surprising, right? Katie's recollection seems so matter of fact about, the approach or being approached by someone about hiring a hitman. Well, Sigfredo became aware that Katie was seeing Charlie, and on July 1st, 2014, there was a bit of a confrontation. Katie was in the car with Charlie when Sigfredo pulled up and blocked their exit. And then Sigfredo got out of the car and started yelling at Katie and Charlie. Katie doesn't say much, or she doesn't testify much else about what happened next. But several hours later, Sigfredo Garcia called Harvey Adelson and left a message. We will later learn that that call went to voicemail and that there was a message left. When asked how Sigfredo would have gotten Harvey's number, Katie opined that Sigfredo, probably after being angry and confronting them, Googled the Adelson practice or Adelson and dentist and tried to find Charlie and called Harvey instead. Okay, so let's go back to the murder. When asked why she would agree to be the go-between for the murder, this is how she responded.
Oh, at that time, Charlie knew that I was going through financial situations, so I guess he thought, hey, you can make some money.
You needed the money.
Yes, ma'am.
And Garcia and Rivera, they were also motivated by money, right?
Of course.
Did Charlie Adelson tell you why he wanted to harm Dan Markel?
At that time, no, ma'am.
Okay. What did you learn about Dan Markel over the course of your relationship with Charlie Adelson?
Well, through the course, he was just mentioning that his parents were going through it, that his sister was going through it, that, he basically painted a bad picture of Mr. Markel, and since he knew that I was going through stuff with Sigfredo, it was I was like sympathizing with his sister because I know how it feels to go through.
Okay,
turmoil.
so you knew that his sister was having a terrible time with her ex.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had things going on with Garcia that felt relatable.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what does it mean that his parents are going through it?
He just said that they couldn't sleep, that at some point I think somebody was throwing up. I don't know if it was his mom or his dad, and that it was just becoming a big problem to them.
Okay, and the big problem was Dan Markel.
Yes, ma'am.
Katie would take several months to consider Charlie's Halloween request, and ultimately she told him she had somebody who could do the job. These conversations about the hit seemed to be fluid and continuous, according to Katie. But Katie did mention that on many occasions when her and Charlie were talking about the hit, that Charlie would get on the phone with his mom and then kind of look at Katie, and then he would step outside of the room, finish his conversation with his mom on the phone, and then return to talk to Katie about how this had to be taken care of. This was a regular occurrence when they talked about getting the job done, and mom was on the phone with Charlie. Katie then testifies about the murder plot. She does kind of remove herself from knowing too much, and I want you to hear it from her.
At some point, did you learn this isn't going to be just harming, maybe punch him in the face or something. It's going to be a murder.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And do you know specifically when you learned that?
There was an envelope that Charlie had given me one day that I went over to his house, and he told me not to open it, and that he had worn gloves to close it, and that was basically it. And that I was the understanding of to pass it on to whoever I knew could take care of it.
Okay. And when it's pass it on to whoever you knew, the name Sigfredo Garcia is used or is not used?
No, it was never used.
Okay, and is that, when we're talking about this conspiracy in general terms, are you in general trying to insulate the co-conspirator on this side of you from the one over here?
Yes, ma'am. I was basically in the middle.
So you don't talk about Charlie to Sigfredo and you don't talk about Sigfredo to Charlie?
No, ma'am.
But they both,
Knew that it was to them, yes.
okay. He said he wore gloves when he put whatever he put in the envelope.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And so he told you, don't open it, don't touch what's in there.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And what kind of envelope was it?
It was a manila envelope.
Was there any writing on the envelope or anything on the outside?
No, ma'am. It was blank.
All right. So the envelope goes into your diaper bag, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you take it and Sigfredo gets it from you?
Yes, well, eventually when I came home, because I usually have that diaper bag, that's like my little weekend bag. And when I came home, I contacted Sigfredo and I was like, hey, I have a package for you. Just come by whenever you can.
Did you open it and see what was inside?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did Charlie Adelson say anything to you about where he printed the documents that were contained inside?
He did mention that he would never, he's like, oh, I didn't print this in my, the office that he had in his home. Probably printed in one of the offices that he worked at.
Because he would frequent
Travel.
a bunch of different offices,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Okay. All right, so you gave this package to Garcia, and did he open it in your presence?
No, ma'am. He literally took it and left out the door.
All right, and had you talked to him beforehand about, hey, I'm gonna give you some instructions about a job?
No, there was no conversation about it. Basically, just I have that package, and then he took it.
But how
and
did he
left.
know what the package was? Had you talked to him at all about, hey, I got a job for you?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Like I told him that that I have potential person that needed to get harmed or beat up from my understanding at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, okay.
Okay. All right, so I want to ask you about the June trip. In June, did you provide Garcia with any money for expenses associated with that June trip?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you get the money from to give to Garcia?
From Charlie.
Okay, how much money was it?
From my recollection, it was a couple $100, less than $5, maybe.
So this was just for like gas and whatever was needed to get to Tallahassee and back?
Yes, ma'am. I just didn't know where he was going. I didn't know about
Okay,
Tallahassee.
but you knew it was for this job that we're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and at that point you knew it was a murder because the envelope had been passed, right?
Yes, the envelope was passed towards kind of like in the beginning of the year, so we're already in June at that time.
All right. And when you went to Charlie to get the money for the expenses, what did you say?
I needed some money for for the job that he had told me about, and that they needed to either scope it out or just funds to get out of town.
Okay. So your understanding was the first mission to Tallahassee, or you didn't know it was to Tallahassee, but the first trip that needed funds was going to be like a scoping trip, not to actually accomplish the murder.
Yeah, to my understanding, yes, ma'am.
All right. Did you give that money to Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And after the June trip happened, how did Charlie Adelson react to, I guess, just things not progressing along very quickly with this job?
Well, since I guess nothing happened and something was to happen, he was like, well, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. So Sigfredo didn't tell me anything. He's just MIA again, because he just kind of goes in and out of my life.
So sometimes he'd be hard to reach.
Yes, ma'am.
And were you worried that like maybe he'd taken this few $100s and now he's
Of
gone
course.
off the grid and I can't really give any information to Charlie about what's happening?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you getting any pressure put on you to get the job done?
Yes, ma'am, from Charlie.
And did that increase over time, like between, and I specifically want to know about between the June trip and the ultimate murder trip?
Yes, ma'am. He was a little bit more adamant and persistent. Well, Katie, why hasn't anything been happening? What's going on?
And were you then in turn putting some pressure on Garcia to get it done, make it happen?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you relay the message to the killers that the victim was going to be going out of town the day after he ultimately was killed?
No, ma'am. I
Did
had
you
no
know-
knowledge.
You didn't know anything about Dan Markel's travel schedule?
No, ma'am.
Do you know whether his travel schedule was contained in the documents inside that manila envelope?
I would think a lot of information was there because for some reason, Sigfredo knew information and Charlie knew information, and that's why the whole confusion was on me. And it's
Okay, but you don't know what was in there, you didn't look at it, and you didn't relay that message about the travel?
no, ma'am. Had no knowledge of it.
So then we get into what happened immediately after the murder.
All right, for the July trip, once the murder was done, did you receive a phone call from Sigfredo Garcia?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And were the two men looking to get their money for the murder?
I don't know what my conversation was with Sigfredo, but I did speak to him on the phone.
But you understood that you needed to get the money, right? And pay
Yes.
them.
Yes, ma'am.
That was part of your job,
Yes, ma'am.
part of your role in this whole thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you go to Charlie Adelson's house to get the money on the night of the shooting?
Yes, ma'am. He had contacted me and told me that there was an accident and if he can have dinner with me that night.
Okay. And the accident was a reference to the shooting of Dan Markel.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Which was not an accident, right?
No, ma'am.
And when you get there, how is Charlie acting?
He was pretty frantic, just pacing back and forth, and he had a gun in his hand.
Okay. Was that unusual behavior for him?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he say anything about his parents when you arrived at his house that night?
He told me that his parents just left.
Did you end up staying the night there?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Were you planning on spending the night there?
No, ma'am, I was not.
Okay. Originally, was your plan to get the money and take it to the two men that killed Mr. Markel?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
All right. What happened the next morning?
Well, since that night, since he was like pacing back and forth, and he had given me a Xanax, that's why I fell asleep.
Okay.
And that's why
Did
it
he
was.
take Xanax as well?
Yes, ma'am, he took one as well.
Okay. And the next morning, did something happen with the money?
Yes, ma'am. So I woke up. I was like, I gotta get out of here, and he told me that the money is in the trunk of my car.
All right. And was the money in the trunk of your car?
I actually did not check it. I just got my keys and left.
So you believed him that it was there.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you got to where you were going, where did you go to deliver the money?
I was trying to contact Sigfredo and had a hard time trying to contact him. And then I eventually ended up in the alleyway of where Louis lived at that time.
At Luis Rivera's residence.
Yes, ma'am.
And did Garcia show up there when you pulled up there?
Yeah, he just kind of jumped in my car. I didn't know where he came from.
All right. And was he able to get the money?
Yes, I told him that his money was in the trunk of the car.
And he was able to remove it, and you observed him removing it, and the money was there.
Yes, ma'am. He went to the bag, grabbed it, and then I saw him. He left.
How did you get your cut of the money?
I don't know if it was later on that night that he came back to my apartment, or the following day, and then he put it in the closet.
How was your cut of the money packaged?
It wasn't like a cut. It was just basically it was in a bag, in a plastic bag, grocery bag, and I believe there was like a paper bag and then a Ziploc bag inside it.
All right, so the inner thing was a Ziploc bag.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you opened the Ziploc bag, did you notice that the money was stapled together?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
It was, okay. Did you notice something else unusual about the money?
At that moment, I didn't when I opened it, but a couple days after the fact, it was wet and starting to mold.
The money itself was damp to the touch.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, and did you ever mention that fact to Charlie Adelson?
I'm pretty sure I contacted him and told him why is the money wet.
What do you mean pretty sure? You did or you didn't?
That I didn't.
Okay, and when you contacted him and said the money's wet, or you just mentioned to him the money's wet, did he have a response?
Yes, ma'am. He told me.
Go ahead.
Told me that that his mom washed the money.
That she physically washed the money?
Yes, ma'am.
There it is, the washing of the money that we talked about earlier this week. On the stand, Katie kind of denied that Charlie helped her financially, which was clearly a big, fat, giant lie. But the prosecutor tried however best she could to rehabilitate Katie on the stand. As a juror, I'm going to tell you straight up, I would be sitting there and taking everything this woman says with a grain of salt. The paychecks from the Adelson Institute also stopped right after the hitmen were arrested, and she recalled meeting up with Charlie after the bump. And remember, the bump happened right before the arrest. Now, this part gets real confusing, so just hang in there with me. Because now Katie on the stand says that she had no clue, even at the time that the bump happened, that Luis Rivera was involved in Dan Markel's murder. Remember, Charlie communicates with her, gives her this envelope. She gives Sigfredo the envelope with instructions. Dan is murdered. She gets the money. She gives it to Sigfredo. But this is a bit confusing. It's a bit off because Luis Rivera testified that Katie called him the day after the murder trying to find Sigfredo, so to be like, hey, let me give you the money. So all of this is to say that Katie is testifying now that she did not know Luis was involved in Dan's murder at the time. But Charlie, when they meet after the bump and Charlie meets with Katie, Charlie starts talking about some guy named Tato. When Katie is listening to this and she's and she hears the name Tato, she thinks that Charlie is confused because get this, Tato is Luis Rivera's nickname. At this point, Katie says she doesn't realize and doesn't know that Luis Rivera, aka Tato, is involved. But Sigfredo Garcia's nickname is Tuto. So when she's sitting here after the bump with Charlie talking about the bump, and he's talking about Tato, because remember, Tato was the name that the undercover agent gave. She's confused and she's thinking, oh, Charlie's confused and he's thinking about Tuto, that is Sigfredo Garcia. I know, very confusing, but she does testify to this a little bit. After the bump, Charlie told Katie to call the number on the paper from the bump and to find out what the heck they wanted. Charlie basically wanted Katie to take care of it. So during cross-examination, the defense took advantage of all of Katie's inconsistencies. In fact, during cross, Katie testified that when she gave Sigfredo the envelope, she didn't even know he was the one who was going to get the job done. She thought maybe he was going to contract it out to someone else, which, what is she saying? Is she really saying this? It seems to me like this woman might be a little bit delusional. And then here is the most incredulous testimony of all. Katie testified that she did not know how much they would be paid to kill Dan Markel. Here is that exchange with the defense attorney.
And so you engage Sigfredo Garcia to be the one who causes whatever harm it's going to be to Danny Markel, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And after you do that, you know who Luis Rivera is, right?
Do I know? Yes, I know.
At that time, you knew who he was?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But is it your testimony you did not know that he was going to be involved with this as well?
Yes, I did not know that he was going to be with him. Let alone I didn't know that Sigfredo was even going to be the one.
Oh, I'm sorry. You hired someone other than Sigfredo to do it?
No, I didn't know that I just gave him, I told him that somebody, needed to be harmed. I didn't know that he was going to be the one.
Okay. And how much money did you tell him he could make?
I didn't tell him an amount.
So you testified before that you knew Sigfredo needed some money and you could certainly use some money, so that's why you agreed to do this.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you were going to agree to have somebody killed and you didn't even know how much you were going to get paid?
No, I did not know.
But wait, it gets better, because after she gets her cut of the money, Katie testifies she does not know how much she was paid.
Acts of whatever amount it was. I didn't count it.
It was stapled together, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So how much did you get for arranging Danny Markell to be killed from Charlie's request to passing that on to Sigfredo Garcia? How much money did you get?
I never counted how much money was even in the bag.
As you sit here today, you're telling this jury you never know what your cut was. You
No,
can't
ma'am.
tell them.
No, ma'am, I never counted it.
You spent some of it, didn't you?
I believe so, through
And you
time,
depo-
yes.
And you deposited some of it into your bank account,
Yes, ma'am.
but you don't know how much yours was.
No, ma'am.
Woof. You're a juror. What are you thinking right now? All right, I know that I'm thinking, like, what in the world is going on here? So let me show you how the redirect concluded with the prosecutor.
Donna had conversations with Charlie, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Charlie had conversations with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Charlie was the go-between between you and Donna, wasn't he?
Yes, ma'am.
The same way you were the go-between between Charlie and Garcia.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the last witness of the day was Christopher Corbett, a sergeant with the Tallahassee Police Department. He was there in court to testify about cell phone data. Here, he spoke about the July 1st call from Sigfredo Garcia to Harvey Adelson, which is interesting because it's the only thing, like literally that call between Sigfredo and Harvey is the only thing that connects the shooter directly to the Adelsons. The prosecutor then presents a picture and she harps on this particular fact, this one July phone call. Here it is.
Did anybody in this chart have phone contact with Garcia or Rivera down at the bottom during 2014 other than the 37-second call between Garcia and Harvey Adelson on July 1st and obviously Catherine Magbanua?
No.
All right, I want to go back to that July 1st 37-second call that was routed to voicemail. Was it your understanding that that call came after an incident where Garcia angrily confronted Magbanua and Charlie Adelson on July 1st of 2014?
Yes.
Okay, and then Garcia left an angry voicemail on Harvey Adelson's phone.
Correct.
Were there text messages in Charlie Adelson's iCloud that referenced that event?
There were.
Okay, and do you have those for us here?
I do. So this is slide 35 now, cumulatively, and we see the communication between Mr. Charlie Adelson and Ms. Magbanua.
Okay, so if this is July 2nd, beginning at, is that 9:12 a.m.?
Yes.
So this would be the morning after that voicemail is left on Harvey Adelson's phone
That's correct.
by Garcia.
That's correct.
Can you walk us through these messages?
Certainly. So Charlie Adelson states that this really sucks, and Ms. Magbanua responds in a couple of messages that she doesn't like the fact that someone thinks they can make decisions in her life, and then apologize, and that the leaving messages was retarded and childish.
Okay. And does she say to Charlie Adelson on July 2nd, I'm sorry, but he's a effing pussy. All that leaving messages is, as you said, and so childish.
Yes.
Okay. But whatever.
But whatever.
Okay.
Moving on from cell phone records, this witness also gets into emails. It is confirmed that Donna and Harvey do in fact share an email address. But he does point out that there are context clues that can lead you to figure out who it was that sent the email. For example, Donna would sometimes sign her emails with Mom. And there's actually one more thing that can point to where the email came from. The name as it appears in the email block actually changes depending on which device you are using to send a message. It will sometimes show up as Donna, Donna J, or even Harvey. And this is important because some of these emails are pretty damning, and many of the ones signed by Mom show that she was the one that sent them, right? And she was very controlling, and she had a part to play in Wendy's divorce. telling Wendi that Dan was not going to beat the Adelson family, and she even told Wendi to toughen up. Then there was the issue of Wendi buying a house in Tallahassee. You see, in late 2013, Wendi had lined up a house to purchase in Tallahassee. Donna was not happy about this, and she asked Charlie to help her convince his sister to not buy the house in Tallahassee. Charlie then apparently spoke to Wendi and then circled back and reported to Donna, telling her that Wendi was no longer going to buy the house because then, if she did buy the house in Tallahassee, Dan could use it as leverage to further attempt to keep her in Tallahassee if she ever fought back. With that, day 3 wrapped up, and the electronic evidence will be first thing up on day 4. So listen, alternates, don't forget to follow the show wherever you're watching and listening, and we'll be back tomorrow for day 4. Until then, think like a juror, decide like one too.